Let an AI agent grind through a long task, and something sneaky starts happening. It runs in a loop, calls tools, and gathers state. So by step 47, it is trying to decide with the residue of every earlier step still crammed into its context window. And here is the catch that Chroma documented and Anthropic flagged. As those tokens pile up, the model actually gets worse at recalling what matters. They call it context rot. So how do agents run for hours without drowning in their own history? The trick is context compaction. Let's unpack what it condenses and why. First, let us contrast the two ways an agent can handle a growing conversation. Without compaction, every turn just accumulates. Each tool call, each verbose output, each earlier reply stays in the window forever, so the context grows without bound until it hits the limit. Worse, the source graph article points to Chroma's finding. As the token count climbs, the model's ability to accurately recall information from that context decreases. That degradation is context rot, and an ever-growing history walks straight into it. With compaction, the agent keeps a running summary instead. Once the window begins to fill, a compaction step condenses older turns into a compact summary, preserving the key state while freeing the tokens those raw turns were eating. Production memory systems maintain short-term and long-term memory together. And this step is what lets an agent stay sharp deep into a run rather than choking on its own transcript. So how does compaction actually fire during a run? Follow it one step at a time. Every long run eventually pushes the context window toward its ceiling. The agent has looped many times, each tool result and reasoning turn adding tokens, and the budget that once felt roomy is now nearly spent. This filling pressure is the trigger. The system watches how close the accumulated history sits to the limit, and once it crosses that threshold, compaction is about to kick in. Once the threshold trips, the system selects the older, lower signal, turns to compress. Recent exchanges usually stay verbatim because the agent needs their detail, while the earlier stretch, full of stale tool dumps and settled subtasks, becomes the candidate. Choosing what to keep raw and what to fold away is the judgment call that decides how much fidelity survives the squeeze. Now the model summarizes that older stretch into a compact memory. It condenses many turns into a running summary that captures the decisions, findings, and state the agent still needs, while dropping the verbose residue. In some designs, the model even writes its own scratch pad to a file outside the context window, then rereads the persistent memory only when a later step actually calls for it. Finally, the agent continues with the freed budget. The bulky old turns are gone, replaced by their summary, so the window has room again and the model works against cleaner, denser context. Because there are fewer low-signal tokens crowding the window, recall holds up better, and the loop can push on towards step 47 and well beyond without stalling. Strip it back, and 3 ideas define context compaction. This technique exists to fight context rot. Chroma's research showed recall dropping as the window grows. So compaction trims the accumulated history down to a dense summary and keeps the signal-to-noise ratio high. It is less about saving money and more about protecting the model's ability to actually use what is in front of it deep into a long session. Remember that compaction is not the same as retrieval. Classical retrieval augmented generation pulls external documents from a vector database into the context on demand. Compaction instead manages the tokens the agent has already produced across many turns, condensing its own transcript. One fetches new knowledge inward, the other compresses the running conversation, and serious agents lean on both. Keep in mind that summarizing is lossy by nature. Fold the wrong, turn into the summary, and the agent can forget a detail it later needs. So where you draw the line between raw and compacted turns is a real trade-off. That is why systems pair compaction with an external scratch pad. So critical state lives on disk rather than resting only in a summary. All right, let us lock in the essentials. Context compaction condenses an agent's older conversation turns and verbose tool outputs into a compact summary once the context window begins to fill. Its main job is fighting context rot, the documented effect where a model's recall drops as the number of tokens in its window keeps climbing. Unlike retrieval augmented generation, which pulls external data inward, compaction compresses the transcript the agent already produced, often alongside a scratch pad written outside the window. Bear in mind that summarizing is lossy, so choosing what to keep raw is a genuine trade-off in coding agents like Claude Code. If untangling AI agent internals this clearly is your thing, we have a whole lineup waiting for you over at standardy.com. Swing by.